Hi, I'm Brandon Slay, 2000 Olympic champion. And as a wrestling coach and someone who used to wrestle, is that it was always really important for me to study my opponent and to know what my opponent's main moves were, what his main tricks were, how he's going to try to score points on me and beat me. So I would watch video and I'd realize, okay, he leaves his right leg and he shoots a single leg, or he has this particular move on top. I would study my opponent, and the better I knew my opponent, I always thought the better chance I had to beat him. For example, in the Olympics, I had to study this guy, Buvasa Satiev, and the more I studied him, the more I knew his best moves. That really increased my chance of eventually beating this guy, by the way, who hadn't lost in 6 years. But if I wouldn't have studied him, I don't think I really would have beat him. And I think we need to think about that in regards to our Christian walk. We have an opponent. We have an adversary who's constantly trying to score points on us and beat us down and cause us to fail. And to be able to win on a daily basis against this adversary, I think it's really, really important that we understand what this adversary's moves are. And this adversary, let's just name it, it's the devil, it's Satan. He's the opposer, he's the accuser, he's the liar. And so what is he attacking us with every single day? And what I want to do is I want to read 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 through 17. I'm going to read this all at one time, then I'm going to unpack this for you. And John says in 1 John 2, 15 through 17, he says, "Do not love the world or the things that are in the world. If anyone loves the world, the Father's love is not in them. Everything in the world, you see, the greedy desire of the flesh, the greedy desire of the eyes, and the pride of life, and none of this comes from the Father, it is from the world. The world is passing away with all its greedy desires, but anyone who does God's will abides forever." So I want to really break this down. What the Apostle John is saying right here is he is clearly defining what the world is. He's clearly defining what our adversary's main moves are. And again, I read this right here. He says, the greedy desires of the flesh, we'll talk about that. The greedy desires of the eyes, we'll talk about that, and the pride of life. So that's a lot of words. So what I want to do is say, that first section, the greedy desires of the flesh, we're going to call that pleasure. And you may say, well, Coach Slay, what do you mean by that? Pleasure, think about this. Things that we would want to do to make us feel better. And what does it look like in the world that we live in? That looks like drugs, right? Alcohol abuse, pornography, gambling, gluttony, like anything that we're going to do to try to escape, to cause us to feel a certain way besides maybe how we feel. It's going to make us feel good and give us that pleasure. And so John's talking about that's the first attack that Satan used, is pleasure. He goes on to say the second one is the greedy desire of the eyes, right? The lust of the eyes. When we see something, we want something, we want to possess it. So that second one, we're going to call that possessions. And possessions means that's when we think that if I possess something, if I have a certain amount of money or a home or a car or a beach house or an Olympic gold medal, like once I possess that, then I'll really be fulfilled. I'll really be happy. By the way, we're going to talk about that's never going to fulfill us. But that's the second attack that our adversary uses. So we talked about pleasure, now we're talking about possessions. And the third one, John says, he calls it the pride of life, also called the boasting, right, of what a man has and does. And that pride of life, we're going to call that power. That's where you think if I have a certain amount of power, a certain title, if I become the president of the company, or again, if I become an Olympic champion or I achieve this or I have this level of status, then I'll really be fulfilled. And so what John's saying right here simply is he's saying that you are being attacked in the world every day in three ways: pleasure, possessions, and power. And what Satan hopes is that you don't even realize that. Like there's that quote before, one of the greatest tricks that Satan's ever had is causing the world that he doesn't exist, right? Tricking the world that he doesn't exist. He hopes that you don't understand any of that's going on. So what I want to do today is make sure you understand that Satan's main moves are pleasure, possessions, and power. And by the way, I'm just going to say right now, none of those things will ever fulfill you. As somebody that humbly has experienced a lot of that stuff and achieved, again, humbly a lot of things in life, none of those things have ever fulfilled me. The only thing that's ever given me true satisfaction and fulfillment is having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And what John goes on to say right here, though, he says, if you fall for those three things, if you want to stay focused on the world and live a worldly lifestyle, in the midst of those three things, he says, none of this is from the Father. It's from the world. It's from the domain of darkness. and it's not going to fulfill you. He goes on to say in verse 17, the world is passing away with all its greedy desires. All three of those things, right? It's passing away. But anyone who does God's will abides forever. So John closes by saying that if we say no to those three things, we realize our adversary's attacking us in those three ways, and we defend against him in those three ways, he said that we will abide in our relationship with God forever. And just really quickly, if you say, Coach Slay, well, how do I defend against those things? How do I defend against pleasure, possessions, and power? I would tell you that you need to get in God's word, the sword of the Spirit, memorize God's word, read God's word, get in a Bible study, a weekly Bible study with people. You need to pray to God, to ask him to help you, to give you strength. Allow you to be strong and courageous, not to be terrified or discouraged, knowing he's going to be with you wherever you go. I would also encourage you to have a heart of worship, thankfulness for all God's given you. And in closing, I would say, don't be a lone ranger. Don't think you can do this all by yourself. Surround yourself with other Christians. Get in an accountability group, get in a community group where you're admitting your mistakes, you're admitting your struggle, and you're praying for those things as a group, as a community, as the church of God. And if you do those things, Bible study, prayer, worship, and fellowship, I believe that you'll be best suited to not only defend yourself against the adversary, but to counterattack him in a way where he'll flee from you. I'll tell you, if you want to take time to read Matthew chapter 4, by the way, Satan, he tempted Jesus in these three ways as well. And Jesus' response to Satan tempting him in those three ways was quoting Deuteronomy, quoting God's word, right? In offense and a counteroffense against the devil. And it says the devil fled from him. And he will do the same for you if you memorize his word and quote it right back to him.